Hello everyone, welcome to the Recitals in Depth by Vajiram And Ravi, where we will be covering the economy and infrastructure articles from August 2024, where we will be discussing the current affair topics related to economy and infrastructure in detail. The broader themes which we are going to cover today are as follows: Indian economy, money and banking, public finance, infrastructure and investment, and social development. Welcome back to the second part of our discussion with reference to economy and infrastructure parts. So we will be continuing our discussion from the model solar village aspect. Now this particular scheme is actually a sub-component of a broader solar ambition or solar initiative for our country, which is the PM Surya Ghar Yojana, and we will be discussing this in respect to because the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy has launched the model solar scheme as a sub-component of the PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana. And here, under this particular scheme, firstly we will be talking about what Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana is all about. See, we understand that India is a country which wishes to transition from a fossil fuel based economy to a green economy or a particular economy which is based on the renewable energy. And in the same terms, our own Prime Minister has also announced the India's broader ambitions to transition India into a net zero emitter of carbon emissions by 2070. And that cannot be achieved if each and every household, each and every Indian, right, is not, say, having a sustainable way of livelihood. And also in the same understanding, this particular scheme is working on how we can transform our household energy requirements or our household power requirements and channelize the energy that we get from coal or, say, gas based thermal power plants to that from solar or wind energy. So this particular focus is on solar energy, where we have around an outlay of 75,000 crores which will be used in installing the rooftop solar panels. That means we have a particular, say, accommodation or a house or a flat, right, or a bungalow, and the particular person who are resident within the same, they can have a rooftop solar panel installation, where within that solar panel they can power their entire appliances or, say, their daily needs. And if, for example, they are left with some extra power, they can supply the extra power to the electricity grid. Right? That means, for example, on an average basis, the household is using 200 units of, say, electricity every month. Now, 400 units of electricity the household is getting from the solar energy using solar rooftop solar panels, right? So what will be the extra 200, or where will be the extra 200 units going to? It will be feeding into the, say energy grid or electricity grid, and on that basis the household can also get some financial incentives based on their electricity usage or, say, future electricity bills and so on. So this is the main idea, where 1 crore households to get around 300 units of electricity every month, which is, for example, they will be getting directly from solar energy, which is free. So whatever we have to understand, the cost that will be involved in this entire scheme for the household would be to install the solar panels. And we know that on a basis, and we know that solar panels are actually quite expensive to build. Also, we know that India is dependent upon a particular country. Can you name the country in the comments below? Right? Okay, let me tell you. That country is China. This country is actually the powerhouse, or, say, the global manufacturer of the major solar components that we use in our solar equipments, be it the solar photovoltaic cells, or be it the batteries, be it the entire infrastructure, right? Be it the technical expertise. China is leading that particular sphere. And that is also one aspect where India is trying to indigenize the production of solar cells in our country, and this is a very important part of our infrastructure syllabus, right, where we have to discuss about the energy requirements of our country, and this is the topic which is exactly falling under that part. Now here in this particular scheme, what there will be the, say, broader details. Firstly, a financial assistance for 30,000, 60,000, 78,000 for around, say, a particular kilowatt hour of the requirements of the households. So the households, for example, right, the households will be figuring out how much of energy they will be requiring, right? And based on that, they can actually get some financial assistance from the government. right? For example, if the entire cost of setting up, for example, a very basic rooftop solar panel, that will be, for example, say is maybe costing 1 lakh rupees, right? And within that 30,000 will be given by the government, right? So accordingly we have various classifications. Next, what are the benefits of this particular scheme? See, firstly, the government will be giving the assistance, right? And that will be given as a collateral free low interest loan at around 7% for households. So if the households would want to take a loan from the banks to build the rooftop solar panels, right, they will be getting a collateral free loan at a very low interest rate. And you know, the average interest rates in our bank is around say 9 to 12 to around say 13% for our day-to-day uses. Then the biggest benefit here is actually the additional income for the households, because I told you that, for example, on an on an average basis the household is using 200 units. Now that household has generated 400 units from solar electricity. So what they will do with the extra 200 will be fed into the electricity grid, right? The nearby electricity grid for to a particular state owned power company maybe, or say a private company maybe which is operating in the power sector such as Adani and so on. So they will be getting this additional income for the households because they can sell their surplus power. This will be also better for the environment because this will be leading to the reduction of around 720 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions over 25 years. And finally, it will be also creating employment because obviously if we calculate the number of households which will be installing the rooftop panels, we will be needing more and more solar modules. And if we need more and more solar PV cells, batteries and infrastructure, we obviously need to increase our manufacturing in this particular direction. Now, in the comment section, can you tell me one very, very important scheme which is related to the manufacture of solar related equipment in India? This is a very important scheme and very important for your examination also. So please let me know in the comments below. Now, coming to the component of Model Solar Village. Now, you know that India is trying to promote this rooftop solar panels, and one of the various issues with various government schemes is that most of the schemes are not implemented at the ground level, right? And that is why this particular sub-component has been introduced, where the implementation of this Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana is thought of right now being decentralized. Decentralized, that means the most of the benefits now will be accrued to the villages at the grassroots level. How this will be done? Because right now around 800 crore rupees will be denoted for the model solar village, or the villages where these rooftop solar panels will be installed in this particular village, where the village population must be at around 5,000 people, and they will be getting 1 crore rupees per village. Now, how this village will be selected? Is every village going to get this particular 1 crore rupees? No, because these villages will be invited for a conference, for a particular competition rather, where these villages have to present their plans. They have to present their plans, how they can install, or how they can try to improve the implementation of this particular scheme in their own village. And if by the plans the government is satisfied, okay, this village will be able to do this practical implementation, then the village will be awarded this 1 crore rupees, right? And this is a very, very important section of the scheme because this is trying to foster a competitive environment between the various villages of the country, right? So these are also good examples whenever we try to write any answers on decentralization, on panchayats, on the various aspects of rural development. So this example must be there, right? You can use these examples in your mains answers to actually improve your quality to get that 1 more mark extra, right? Then for the implementation, that is how this 1 crore rupees will be spent. This 1 crore rupees spent will be actually spent on the rooftop solar panels, on the various aspects of developing infrastructure of renewable energy in the village. And who will be supervising the spending of this amount? There will be district level committees. And finally, the state, there will be also state renewable energy departments who will be supervising the DLCs, and finally DLCs will be monitoring the villages and the implementation, right? So here also we understand the role of a district magistrate into ensuring that the progress, that the various aspects of development is accruing to the grassroots level of our country. So these are actually very, very important initiatives to ensure the overall development of the country. Now, in the next article or the next issue, we'll be talking into the various aspects of Eri Silk, which is a very, very interesting silk. If you can look at this picture, you must have seen this somewhere in your household, in our markets and so on, right? Now, this is a very special kind of a silk. Now, the Northeastern Handicrafts and Handloom Development Corporation, under the Ministry of Development of Northeastern Region, that is also known as DONA, has obtained this Oecotech certification from Germany. And firstly, we'll be looking at distribution, or say the production of silk all across the country. Now, this is what we know as sericulture, right? And if we look at this map, this is a sericulture map of India, which is tracking the various sericulture clusters, or the places where the production of silk is very prominent, happens all across India. So mainly we find we have various varieties of Eri silk, mulberry silk, the muga, the tashar, right, and the various aspects, or say the diversity of various other varieties of this silk itself, right? So prominently we find that the distribution of these broader four kinds of silk are prominently distributed all across India. But if you look at, if you focus at the northeast part, right, if you look at the northeastern map, so we find, be it the tasar, be it the muga, right, be it the Eri silk, or be it the mulberry silk. I told you these are the major classifications of silk in India. Now, all of these four classifications of silk are found in the northeast. But here we have to mainly talk about the Eri silk. Now, Eri silk is extremely special because it is also something which we know as ahimsa silk. Why? Because we know that silk is generally produced from, say, the silkworms, and generally when the silkworms metamorphoses into, say, a butterfly or a moth maybe, that particular, say, moth, when it is, say, metamorphosized or evolved into, this kind of next stage of their life, they sometimes do not leave the cocoon, right? They do not leave the cocoon, and they are sometimes deliberately killed to get the cocoon and hence get the silk out of the cocoon. But in this Eri silk, what happens? The moth here, they leave the silk cocoon after a period of time automatically. So it does not, say, lead to the killing of any kind of, say, insects, any kind of organisms during the production of this kind of silk. And that is why it is known as the silk of peace, or ahimsa silk, right? And also we find that this is also a silk which is isothermal in nature. Isothermal in nature, why? Because during summer seasons this silk actually is very comfortable to wear, but during the winter season this silk is just like that you will be feeling quite warm while wearing this kind of very unique kind of silk variety in the country, and that is what makes it extremely versatile and extremely popular all across the world. Additionally, this silk is also recognized under the geographical indication tags. Now, in the comment section, can one of you tell me what is the particular legislation that is pertaining to GI indications in the country? Now, recently, the Central Banker Report Cards of 2024 has been released, and there is a good news for India. Why? Because the central bankers earning an A+ grade in the Global Finance Central Banker Report Cards are Denmark, India and Switzerland. And let me tell you, these are the top rankings where the central bankers, generally the governors, for example, in our case, Shaktikanta Das, who is a governor of the RBI, they are recognized based on their excellent handling of economic situations, being as the head of the central bank of a country. Because we know, right, we know that the role of central bank is extremely important for various reasons. Firstly, in India we know that the central bank is actually tasked with something which we know as monetary policy. Monetary policy is a very huge term. In a very nutshell, I can tell you that monetary policy encompasses that how the country, using various policies pertaining to controlling and say aspects of money supply, they can manipulate or they can actually aid and facilitate the GDP growth of our country. They can actually create more and more employment due to various tools entrusted with them, which can have some indirect effects on creating employment in the country and hence also lead to higher GDP. Also, it is actually entasced with the broader aspect of controlling macroeconomic indicators generally pertaining to money supply in the country. And one of the most important aspects out of this entire scenario is also to control inflation in the nation, right? Due to which we have the Monetary Policy Committee. Now, can you tell me what is the inflation target rate or range in the country according to the Monetary Policy Committee? In the comments below, please do let me know, right? Acha. Then we also have, apart from monetary policy, right, the various other roles. For example, the central bank or say the RBI in our country is actually also known as banker to the government. It is also known as banker to the banks. Why? Because as banker to the government, the RBI maintains all of the government accounts, right? And also, as being a banker to the various banks in our country, the RBI is also looking into the various liquidity needs of the say various banks in the nation, and also it also looks into the various emergency provisions of credit funding in the nation. And that is why we also know right now that India is actually, or say the global economies act at particular time at a particular juncture when we understand the global economic headwinds are extremely volatile. Right? This means that the overall aspects of global conflicts which are taking place, such as starting, if we look at 2020, it started with the COVID pandemic. Then we have the various global issues. For example, say the issues related to China and the US. Also, the global pandemic that took place in 2020, it also led to the say various reduction in the interest rates during the pandemic. Then after the pandemic, the aspect of inflation, the phenomenon of inflation also was very prevalent all across the world, including our own country. Then the central banks had to increase the interest rates due to, we have had various economic volatility. So after this, we also had various global crises. For example, say Russia-Ukraine issue, the current ongoing issues in the Gulf region, and Israel and the Palestine issue. So we understand that the global world or the global economy is at a juncture which is fraught with many challenges. And within those periods of time, right, our own central bank and our own RBI governor has been successfully delivering the various economic imperatives that their role is actually being looking into. So that is where we understand this particular report is very significant, right? Now, in this next article, we'll be looking into three important aspects where the Ministry of Power, right, via the Central Electricity Authority, has launched 3 online portals. Now, these 3 online portals are Portal for Online Monitoring of Projects Thermal, or known as PROMPT, DRIPS, which is the Disaster Resilient Infrastructure for Power Sector, then Jal Vidyut DPR, which is a monitoring, survey and investigation activities of hydroelectric projects, and PSP, pumped storage projects. Now, the main aspect here is that the Ministry of Power has launched these 3 online portals, and how it is very important for your prelims, because there have been many instances in prelims where UPSC has asked that, for example, DRIPS, PROMPT and Jal Vidyut DPR is recently seen in news. What are these terms related to? They can tell, for example, say this is related to, say, solar energy initiatives in the country. They can tell that these are related to afforestation initiatives in the country. They can also tell that these are related to, for example, say, reforms in the power sector, right? Reforms in the power sector. So these are actually the current affairs where there are some portals in news, there are some initiatives in news, maybe there are some platforms in news, there are some NGOs in news, or there are some many important, say programs in news. So that is where we need to just understand what these things are all about, what is the broader target, which is to reform the power sector in the country, and how these questions can be asked in the prelims, right? So briefly, we got the idea that these all things are related to online portals that are aiming for the power sector reforms in the country. Now let us briefly look into what the things are all about. See, this Jal Vidyut DPR, it is all about hydro energy, right? And the main aspect of this portal, online portal, is actually to coordinate the various activities related to the hydro energy sector in the country. And the main aspect of this portal is to is actually to create a digital ecosystem of the various, monitoring, surveys, investigating various activities that can be pertaining to the hydropower projects and the pumped storage projects in the nation. Now we know all about the hydropower projects. Pump storage is actually a kind of technology where, for example, say if we look at this particular dam here, right? If we look at this particular dam here, now this is a river whose water is actually being stored as a potential energy, and that potential energy is converted into electricity using the various elevation and using various technology within the dam. Now under the force of gravity, obviously the water will be flowing down and it will be going down into the various river stream or the river flow according to the river flow. Now under this pumped storage technology, what happens is that there will be another kind of equipment which will be kind of a funnel, right? This funnel will be doing what? This funnel will be transporting the water from this lower elevation site to the higher elevation site. Right? Now this is generally done to conserve or use the same waters again and again, right? And hence to also generate energy. Now the energy that is required for pumping the water back will be actually be used from this electricity itself. And why this is very significant and why India is trying to achieve it, because during the rain deficient seasons, the dams will not be getting enough water. From where the water will be procured? By using this kind of things. Also, there is another way of powering this, that is using solar energy. Now in India, recently there was actually an initiative to have more and more pumped storage technology, right? That is related to hydro energy, which is launching solar initiatives to fit the solar plants or the solar cells into various dams, and the dams which are having the potential of pump storage, this will be converting the solar energy and into electricity, which can pump back the water from the lower region to the higher region. Right, so this is the main idea here, and this particular portal will be looking into the various aspects of all hydropower energy in the country, all the pump storage energy in the country, and also it will be facilitating seamless amount of communication between the various projects, between the central government, between the state governments, and will be coordinating the efforts into meeting the needs of the country related to hydro energy. So this is an extremely important portal, and here this will be also involving various important agencies. For example, Central Water Commission, Geological Survey of India, then we'll be also having the Central Soil and Minerals Research Station, and finally we'll be also having the Ministry of Environment in this particular loop in this portal. So this will be actually be providing an online platform and all of the stakeholders will be there. Now, looking on to the next one, that is Prompt. Now Prompt is actually a portal which will be coordinated by the NTPC, National Thermal Power Corporation. Now this NTPC, what it will be doing? It will be looking into all the ongoing thermal power projects in the country. All the ongoing thermal power projects in the country, it will be looking how they are actually being under construction, right? It will be looking into the various aspects of looking into the accountability of this kind of projects and how they are being completed on time or not. It will be also looking into the resource optimization by creating an online digital platform, right? So all of these are online digital platform, and how these platforms can interact with the various departments of the state government, the ministries of the center, right? And the various aspects of using the private sector for the various material resource collection and so on. It will be having a unified portal to have everyone on the same page, and it will be creating an ecosystem where the thermal power sector in the country can progress and also minimize their losses and utilize the resources more effectively. Now this DRIPS portal, this is extremely important, as you can see from the figure here itself, right? This is a figure which is reflecting, which is actually showing say transmission line broken down, into half, maybe due to environmental calamities or natural disasters, due to maybe extreme cyclonic events, particularly in the coastal areas of the country, which are prone to cyclones. And we know that whenever there are some natural calamities such as cyclones, it will be impacting the local transmission or power transmission sector very, very brutally. And during these times, it will be the vulnerable sections of the population who will be affected by the same. Now, in the recent instances, can you let me some of the major, say, cyclones in the country which struck and which was very, very deadly for the local population, right? Now, these particular activities need coordination between the state agencies, between the central government and so on. Now, this is that particular platform, DRIPS, again an online platform where all of the activities of all of the, say, disaster management related activities related to power sector will be taken care of, and it's developed by the Central Electricity Authority. Now let me tell you about CEA a little bit. CEA is actually set up under the Electricity Act, right, of 2003. And it is under the Ministry of Power, as I also stated in the very first. So CEA will be looking into the operationalization of this particular portal, and it will be looking into the various aspects of how various agencies, various infrastructure in the country needs to be coordinated to prevent this kind of, say, issues, and if those issues are taking place due to natural disasters, how they can be solved. So this is the broader idea, and based on the three portals that we discussed, please do let me know what is the answer to this MCQ in the comments below. Now, recently, the Agriculture and Processed Food Products Export Development Authority, or also known as APEDA, has launched an initiative to export the Purandar Figs to Poland. Earlier, as we can see from our minister, that this particular Purandar Figs were exported to Germany, and these are also GI tagged, and these particular agricultural products are in high demand abroad. So let us look at the Purandar flags from a prelims perspective, where that Purandar Figs are having GI tags, and this belongs to Maharashtra's Pune region. And recently they have been shipped to Germany and the various parts of the world, right? And if you also understand, the Purandar Highlands Farmers Producers Company, it is actually trying to have better amount of export services and export destinations, particularly Germany, Poland, various European nations, to have this particular variety in the foreign markets. And this is actually try to emphasize India's focus on research and development in our own agricultural sector. Now we'll be also looking a bit on APEDA. Now these are all important aspects related to prelims information. See, when we discuss APEDA, we have to look into, say, the various aspects, the various basics of the same. It was established under Agricultural and Processed, say, Food Products Export Development Authority Act, or APEDA Act 1985. So this is a statutory body, right? It is headquartered at New Delhi and functions under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Very, very important. Generally, we understand any body which is involved in the export or say the promotion of exports of various agricultural produce or various other products in the country, these are generally under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. What are the major functions? Firstly, for the promotion of export-oriented production and development of various scheduled products. What are scheduled products? The scheduled products are actually mentioned under the APEDA Act or various rules and bylaws of this particular authority, which is trying to, say, promote the export of those particular products abroad. Then it also carries on the registration of persons as exporters of the scheduled products. So also, who are the particular exporters? What are the various norms they have to follow? What are the various licenses they have to take? And the various other legal requirements they have to be also fulfilling under the APEDA Act. Then APEDA will also be leading to the fixing of standards and specifications for scheduled products. Various, obviously, standards and specifications are extremely important, because we also know that India is a member of the WTO. But WTO and also the international trade, they require you to adhere to the strictest or highest quality of products when it concerns the agricultural export or the various exports of other products. It also involves the packaging of the scheduled products. Packaging, marketing, right, is extremely important, because we understand the storage, the perishability of agricultural items is actually a very serious issue. Then it also leads to training in various aspects of industries connected with the scheduled products. It also functions as a secretariat to the National Accreditation Board for the implementation of the accreditation of the certification boards under the national program for organic production. So we know that in India, right, we have generally two modes of organic farming. Firstly, we have the participatory guarantee scheme, where the organic farmers, they try to self-certify the organic products, in their own regions by a peer review initiative. Another is actually the NPOP, right, where the APEDA will be certifying that whether a particular organic produce is actually adhering to the standards as they follow according to their functions. So these kind of products, NPOP products, they are allowed for export, but PGS organic produce, they are only allowed for sale and distribution within the domestic territory of our country, right? And finally, APEDA has been entrusted with the responsibility of monitoring the imports of sugar as well, right? So sugar and the import requirements, APEDA is also looking into. Very, very important prelims related information for us. Now, there is another question for you all. Please do let me the answer of the same in the comments below. Now in the next article, as we can see in this picture here, our own Prime Minister has released around 109 biofortified crops with the collaboration at the India Agriculture Research Institute, IARI, or it is also popularly known as. Now IARI is actually the main institute which is trying to pioneer the development of the various agricultural varieties in the country. And these 109 biofortified crops, these are actually divided into both field crops such as rice, wheat and so on, and also the horticulture crops such as fruits, vegetables, right? So we do not have to know the individual names and details of 109 crops, but what is important for our discussion here is what do you mean by biofortified crops and what are the benefits of the same. Now see, when we talk about biofortification, it is generally starting with the issue that a particular crop can fall short of its nutritional value. For example, if you take the various examples of rice, some varieties of rice is having better amount of iron content and various other vitamins maybe, but some other varieties are not having. So it creates an uneven distribution, and we know that the vulnerable sections of the population, they need to be fed good amount of quality of nutritional crops or nutritional food. So this is where we find that there can be a micronutrient deficient plant which is lacking maybe quality protein, calcium, vitamin and so on. Now, we need to also solve the issues of malnutrition in the country, right? How they can be solved? They can be actually be solved by giving direct nutrient supplementation to the various, say, sections of the population, where we can just give them medicines of vitamin A, vitamin B and C and so on. Other way is actually about bringing in change in the dietary modification and diversification, where under the National Food Security Act, under the midday meal scheme, right, we have various say aspects of wherein the government is actually trying to give the food to the poorest sections of the population. And apart from this, we have various state focused schemes also which is trying to deliver the same concept. Now, after doing all these things, still we have various issues related to malnutrition, hunger in the country. And malnutrition is a very serious issue, due to which we have the imperative of biofortification. Now, biofortification is a scientific process, is a biological process as to how a particular crop which is not fulfilling the requirements of human nutrition, they can be transformed using various biological processes, and they can the particular crop, they can be evolved into something which is more and more nutritious for the people to take. Now, this is the main concept of biofortification, and it can be done via three particular technologies. Firstly, we can have a conventional breeding aspect, where we're not using the particular crops or say transforming their genes and so on. This is a particular natural selection process which was actually practiced for thousands of years, right? Where we take two varieties, each having different qualities. Maybe this is a particular crop which is having vitamin A, this is a particular crop which is having calcium. So we try to crossbreed them, selectively breed them, and we'll be getting a new crop variety which will be having the best of the both worlds. Next, we can go for genetic engineering. Genetic engineering is just cutting specific fragments of the DNA of the particular plant and inserting DNA of maybe some other plant, maybe other bacteria, various other say living organisms, which can insert various nutrients in the particular plant, and then we have to breed them, and then we will be getting various other particular new generation of crops which will be having better amount of macro and micronutrients, right? Next, we have the agronomic or microbial treatment of various crops, where we generally say apply various say chemicals, apply various aspects of say man-made synthetic say chemical procedures, where we try to change the say various aspects or say various nutritional component of the plant by applying this treatment, right? Where we can use zinc particles, we can use various other particles, right, to bring about the change in the nutrient shape. Now obviously we find that this thing is extremely important for our say food security imperative, and that is why our Prime Minister has released this kind of 109 biofortified crops recently. And the main benefit is that it will be feeding the poor, and not only it will be delivering this activity, it will be also leading to the effective distribution of food and nutrient between the vulnerable sections of the population, right? And it is also trying to have affordability at its very peak, right? Now, as we can see here, on 11th August, this particular mission by the Prime Minister was done. This will be making, right, nutritious food more available to the people. It will be increasing the affordability, right? It can reduce malnutrition in the country, and finally it will be leading to better amount of research and development in the nation. So this is actually a very, very important point and a very important initiative which we can quote in our main answers, right? And the main aspect, main topic of biofortification, they can actually also come in the prelims examination. So let me know based on the discussion what is the answer of the same in the comments below. In this next article, we'll be looking into the nitrogen use efficiency of rice varieties due to the recent efforts of various biotechnologists at the Guru Gobind Singh Indraprasth University at Delhi. So much so that this particular aspect of high nitrogen use efficiency, this has been factored in that the highest producing variety of rices, they are having 5 times more say nitrogen use efficiency as compared to the crops which do not use that much of nitrogen, or say the rice varieties which do not use that much of nitrogen. And this also does not mean that a high NEUE is actually translated into the highest yields, right? So it does not mean that high nitrogen use is leading to higher yields. And in our discussion, what is important is actually the concept of nitrogen use efficiency, and how sometimes high in nitrogen use efficiency can not be fruitful for the various crops, because high nitrogen use efficiency maybe cannot also improve the yield of various rice varieties or various other crops. Now, to talk about nitrogen use efficiency, we know that various plants use nitrogen as a natural process, where the plants get the nitrogen from fertilizers. It is very good for the crops because of say various benefits the nitrogen molecule has for the particular crops, right? So generally they get from fertilizers. Also the various amounts of nitrogen, they are also available in various parts of the soil. But we have to understand that there are also various say reasons as to how the nitrogen can be lost, right, due to various natural reasons. Firstly, it can be lost to atmosphere. It can be lost to atmosphere from the soils itself, right, under the soils, right. It can be also be lost to leaching, right, and also it can be also lost to the various runoff waters, or say the water that we use for irrigation. Nitrogen can also be washed into the waters, and nearby it can also cause the issue of eutrophication in the nearby say ponds and rivers and so on. And this is why we understand the farmers needs to constantly add nitrogen as fertilizers, as different amount of fertilizers in the particular, say, agriculture practice. And this is where we find various rice varieties which are very popular, right? They have very high amount of nitrogen use efficiency, right? But it does not mean that high nitrogen use efficiency will be definitely be leading to higher yields, right? It is not clear yet. And we also understand that while this is not clear, but there are some various negative effects of the use of nitrogen. Firstly, we understand there is this negative effect of eutrophication, right? Where this will be leading to runoff water in nearby ponds, and it will be creating a very toxic environment into the various wetlands. Next, it is also not good for the soil health over a long period of time, right? Soil health also reduces over a period of time. Also, in India, we understand cereals or rice varieties and various other types of cereals, they consume 2/3 of the all amounts of, say, urea in the country. And we also understand that this leads to a loss of around 1 trillion rupees in a particular year, and over around $170 billion per year globally. So we understand the amount of, say, wastage, amounts of, say, loss of overuse of, say, nitrogen in our agricultural scenario, right? Also, we understand that India is the world's second largest source of nitrous oxide, right? Nitrous oxide, and this is just after China, right? We understand, according to data, that nearly 11% of the global emissions accrue from India, and China is at around 16% of the overall nitrous oxide. And this is actually from using fertilizer, nitrogen as fertilizers and so on. We understand that is why we have to be very careful about using excessive amount of, say, nitrogen in our agriculture, because already the popular rice varieties, they require high amount of nitrogen, and on the top of this we have this amount of say, negative consequences. So this is why we must be trying to have a particular approach of reducing nitrogen usage in our country. And also we understand that in India there are thousands of rice varieties in the country, right? But actually we have to understand this particular research is looking into only a few selected varieties of rice. So the way forward is that we must be conducting more and more research into the existing rice varieties, right? And also we find that over a period of time we must be trying to also substitute the direct use of nitrogen fertilizers by various innovative technologies, such as maybe fertigation, right? Such as maybe other use of, say, drone irrigation, precision farming, use of AI, Internet of Things, which can actually minimize the amount of nitrogen, or say the amount of pollution of nitrous oxide from our Indian agriculture. So to understand this, we must be having better amount of research by more universities all across the country. So this is actually the main way forward that we must be trying to understand. Next, in this question, you let me what is the answer of the same in the comments below. Now recently the Minister of Finance has announced a major amendment on the proposed changes related to the long-term capital gains tax. Now we understand that whenever we talk about capital gains tax, this can be understood through a very simple example. Imagine that you have bought this house, right? Now this is a house which you bought in 2005, right? The cost of the house was rupees 1 crore, right? And over a period of time you thought of, say, living this house because you thought of buying this house as a part of your investment. Over a period of time, you for example are in 2024 and you want to sell this house. You estimate, for example, the value of your house right now, which you bought it for 1 crore, right? It is right now valued at around, say, for example, say 10 crores, right? 10 crore rupees. Now in the meantime, what happened? In the meantime, in between, say, these years, this amount of years, you made something which we know as a capital gain. Capital gain is actually the gain that you have on, say, real estate, on say gold, on stocks or bonds, on various assets, even paintings, right, and various other assets which are subjected to gains like this, because there are various say assets in our daily lives. For our house, for example, our house, our own creation. For a musician, it can be music, right? We have various assets that we create, and over a period of time that asset can increase in value. And it is understandable that the real estate sector is actually very lucrative, due to which if you purchase something in 2005, definitely the value will increase over a period of time. And for example, right now you decide to sell it, right? You try to sell the house. Now what happens? You, on the face of it, for example, can tell that, okay, I have rupees 9 crore. I have rupees 9 crore as a kind of a profit, right? Because my cost was 1 crore. And right now it is 10 crore, so I get a profit of 9 crore. But you are also clever, you know economics, right? You know that 1 crore in 2005, right? You have to bring down the cost of acquisition, which is actually the 1 crore. This is actually known as cost of acquisition. You have to bring the cost of acquisition into present terms, right? Into present terms or present value. What do you mean by that? That is actually what is the cost of 1 crore in 2005 right now. So that is the process of indexation. Indexation means that you will be comparing the inflation rates in 2005, you will be comparing the inflation rates in 2024, and you will be calculating what was actually the value of 1 crore right now. Right? So maybe you find out by adjusting, for example, say whatever the items you could buy with 1 crore then and right now. You try to understand, okay, 2 crore today, right? 2 crore today is actually equivalent to 1 crore back in 2005. Because obviously we know over a period of time, over a period of almost around 20 years, things or say prices have increased over a period of time, and obviously 1 crore will not buy 1 crore, or 1 crore in 2005 will not buy things and commodities or real estate flats, right now of the same value. Obviously the prices have increased, and that is obviously that 1 crore value is around 2 crore. Now you will be telling that, okay, the cost of 1 crore back then, right, was around say 2 crores, right, in present times. So that is why my profit is not 9 crore, my profit is 8 crores. Why you are telling this? Because the government has come to you and told that, okay, you are having this 9 crore gain, right? You pay me tax, right? Government will come everywhere and tell you to pay tax. Obviously, significantly, if you are having some capital gains on stock, bonds, real estate, paintings, and so on. Right? So whenever government will be seeing that, okay, you have made a profit, you have made a gain, now you have to pay me a tax. Now you have to pay me a tax of 9 crore. Now you will be telling, wait government, this is not the correct way of calculating my taxes. I have to index it. I have to calculate the inflation. I have to calculate the inflation. And the government then will be understanding, okay, you are correct that 1 crore 2005 is not the same as 1 crore. Right now, it is now 2 crore. Okay, what you do then? You pay me the tax on 8 crores or 8 CR. Right? So this is actually how indexation operates in real life. And how this indexation is calculated? Because we have the cost inflation index, right? The cost inflation index is actually looking into the various comparisons of the various asset classes, of the various aspects of capital gains over a period of time, and using this, using CII, the indexation is calculated. And what are the recent changes made? Firstly, pre-budget 2024, right? In India, we had 20% long-term capital gains tax with indexation, right? Right now, the government is proposing that right now you can pay 12.5% of tax without indexation. Let us understand this example, or the same example of the house. For example, the acquisition cost of purchasing this house was 1 crore, right? And you, for example, is trying to sell this house right now. You calculate that index cost, you find out whatever was the cost of this house back then, and you compare right now as we have discussed. You find out that it is around 1.5 crore. with indexation, right? And the market value right now is around 2.06 crore. So what you do to find out your gains, you will be minusing say 2.06 crore minus 1.5 crore. So you will be left with around say 56 lakhs of capital gains, and on this you have to pay how much of tax? 20% of tax, right? So if you find out 20%, it is coming out to be around 11.2 lakhs. So this is a tax you have to pay if you are selling a house, that is you bought it with 1 crore and the value of right now is 2.06. Achha, now with the same example, see again the cost of house under this recent change will be 1 crore. The market value is 2.06 crore. Now you are told that you won't calculate any indexation. The government has told you that you have two options, either go with this or go with this. So this we discussed. The tax is 11.2. Now here we cannot do any indexation. No indexation will be allowed. And with reference to no indexation allowed, the government has told, okay, if you are not giving you, if the government is not giving you any benefit of calculating inflation, I am giving you the benefit of reduced taxation rates. So what is the rate? 12.5%. Now 12.5% will be what? On the capital gains. What will be the capital gains? 2.06 crore minus 1 crore, because there is no indexation, right? There is no indexation in this particular aspect, and we find that the capital gains is 1.06 crore because we are minusing these two, correct? And at the end of the day we find that the tax is around 13.2 lakh rupees. If we compare this to 11.2, 13.2, which is higher? Obviously this part is higher where there is no indexation, and it makes sense also. Obviously, because if you are not indexing, if you are not calculating inflation, so this is not an accurate score of your overall purchase. Because if you index, if you calculate inflation, this particular cost, this particular acquisition cost will be going up, right? So that is why you end up paying more tax under the new amendment. So people were actually much more better off with the previous say norm, where we had indexation, but despite paying higher taxes, we are saving more taxes. We are saving 2 lakh rupees, right? Based on this calculation, this choice is saving you 18% almost based on this example, right? So this is what the change was with reference to the budget. Now we have discussed this particular issue, and again a very important question, a very important question based on the concept discussed. So let me know the answer in the comments below. Now students, in this article we will be discussing a very important concept which is known as yen carry trade. Now this was one of the things which was seen in the month of August related to the stock markets and the global economy. Now when we talk about yen carry trade, this is very significant for our concepts because this is actually a very convenient trade. What happens, we'll be starting with very simple examples. What happens is that that the global economy is an open economy. Any investors can come to any country and they can invest in stocks, bonds, maybe also take money or borrow money from various markets. They can actually invest that borrowed money into various other parts of the world. So if you are an investor, if you are a particular financial expert, you can actually make monies in many ways, right? So this is actually one of those ways where people is trying to make money using various aspects of the global economy. What happens is that, in various countries such as Japan, right, the Central Bank of Japan or the Bank of Japan, they have announced that I will be keeping the interest rates very low for Japan. Why? Because the Central Bank of Japan or the Bank of Japan noticed that if we have very low interest rates, if we have interest rates as low as 0.1%, it will be very good for the economy. Why? Obviously we know that if we have lower interest rates, people will be borrowing money, people will be borrowing more and more money. What they will be doing with the borrowing money? They will be buying more and more iPhones maybe, they will be buying more and more equipments, they will be also setting up new businesses, or they will be creating new employment opportunities if they are setting up new businesses. If more and more employment is created, they will be also trying to this particular activity of having low interest rates, this will be creating more and more GDP, right? More GDP growth. So that is why mainly the developed nations, right? They have very ultra low interest rates, right? And Japan traditionally was a country which was having extremely low interest rates. What happened? Many people, they used to do what? They used to borrow. They used to borrow in Japan. For example, there is an US investor. The US investor noticed that, okay, the interest rate in Japan is extremely low at 0.1%. So what I will do, I will take money. For example, say I will be taking $100,000 from Japan. I have to pay very nominal interest rate. That is, just 0.1% of $100,000. So I will be borrowing or raising the money from Japan. What I will be doing? I will be searching for some countries which give me very high interest rates on maybe bonds. Right? For example, I go to Mexico. And I do what? I invest in Mexican bonds, because Mexican government needs to build more and more roads, more and more, say, railways, more airports, right? So that is why Mexican government is requiring high amounts of money. Okay, because they have various infrastructural needs, and because they are needing money right now, what they do, they offer high interest rates. For example, they offer me around, say, 8% coupon rates, or 8%, for example, say, returns on my bonds. So what I do, I as an US investor who is, say, for example, having the freedom of raising money from Japan, I raise $100,000 at very cheap interest rate, and I do what? I invest the same money into Mexico. I generally buy their bonds, and this particular bond is at 8% after 1 year, right? I'll be getting 8% more, right? So this is 8% of this much. And what is the cost? My cost was only 0.1%. So the rest 7.9% is my profit, right? So as an investor, I will be looking that this is my profit, such as a significant profit, right? So this is just one example how borrowers raise money in yen in Japan, right? Now this is a very established process which is going on over a period of time. So borrowers raise the money in Japan in their own currency, yen. They maybe will be converting the currency to dollars or whatever they will be using, right, to buy bonds. And when they are buying bonds, they are getting interest, or say higher amount of returns on the same, and they are making some profits. This can only be possible if Bank of Japan is offering this low interest rates, right? So this is exactly what happens in real life, right, as of now. This is happening where the investors borrow in Japan, they invest in Mexican bonds, they get higher interest rates, and they can have the benefits. Not only they invest in Mexican bonds, this was just an example. They invest in stock markets. Mainly, they invest in stock markets, and they mainly invest in government securities all around the world, mainly in countries where we have the, say, higher amount of returns, right? Higher amount of returns, and they are generally the developing nations, right, with reference to various government securities and so on, and also the stock markets of most prominent nations all around the world. So what happens? Cheap money from the banks in Japan, they enter into the global markets. And if a lot of money from the Japan side, or say Japan denominated loans, they enter the global market, we understand the global market is actually having only one source, one country as the, say, a fund aspect. And if there are some changes in Japan, maybe Bank of Japan tomorrow can tell, okay, 0.1%, no, because these extreme low interest rates is leading to too much of money supply in my Japan. And that is why I think right now I have to raise the interest rates by a little bit, maybe 1%. Now, even this 1%, or say 0.1% to 1%, this small increase of interest rates, this will be creating a panic. This will be creating a panic between the investors. Why? Because investors are very selfish people, right? They understand that they were getting 7.9 and now they can get only 7%. So they will be doing what? They will be extracting all their money, right? they will be taking all their money back from various countries, from various stock markets, from various government security denominator, for example, Mexico, India, China, and so on. Whatever countries they have invested in, they will be taking all the money back and they will be returning to Japan. And as you can see, Japan to end negative interest rates as deflation fears subside. Because of the COVID pandemic, the entire world was in shutdown, and when the lockdown was lifted, shutdown was lifted, the entire economy started being alive. Demand, supply, everything is being being everywhere, and that is when high demand of the people, industries, and so on, this created inflation, right? And also, after this particular phase of inflation in 2021-22, there came a phase of deflation when this entire demand did not persist over a long period of time. This led to a kind of a recession like scenario for major Western economies such as the US, Japan, and so on. So in that particular phase, right, during deflation, what happens? The countries obviously try to have lower interest rate during deflation, and when that deflation phase is over, that depression or recessionary phase is over, the countries try to understand over a period of time people will be maybe demanding more items, and if people demand more items, maybe there will be a fear of inflation. And if there is a fear of inflation in the central bank will be definitely be increasing the interest rate a little bit, and this is what is happening right now. As you can understand, over a period of time, as you can see, this is the core inflation. So between 2020 and 2022 and 2024, we find that the inflation was kind of increasing, right? Again, when we understand in recent times in 2024, right, the data of which is not there in the graph here, the inflation is also kind of increasing over a period of time in Japan by a little bit, and that is what the Japan central bank decided of increasing their interest rates. And if they increase their interest rates, people will be doing what? They will be trying to investors, they will be trying to pull all the money, pull all the invested funds from the various markets they invested all around the world. And if they started doing that, if for example there is an investor here, right, who is trying to sell 1,000 Tesla shares. Why? Because the money of the 1,000 Tesla shares, they came from yen denominated money at very low interest rates. So what happened? This particular investor, they sold Tesla stocks, maybe some another investor sold Google stocks, and so on. This created a selling pressure, massive sell off, which is a term in the stock market to denote that many investors are selling off a particular stock or many stocks at the same period of time. And whenever there is a sell off, the supply of stocks, supply of shares in the market, they increase, and this creates a scenario of market crashing down. Right? So this is what happens when the central bank of Japan, they started raising the interest rates in recent times, or the mere speculation that they will be raising the interest rates. This will be triggering a massive sell-off in the global economy. So this was exactly what was leading to the recent stock market crash in India, because India is also linked to the global economy, and if anything related to this happens in the global economy, India is not immune from that. Definitely India have to be facing the brunt of the same. Now we have one question here to test how well you understood, right, this particular concept. You let me know the aspect of fear of this particular yen carry trade in the comment section below. The answer of the same, please do let me know. Before discussing the new article, look at this picture. Here we have some coins, and from these coins we find there is a small plantling taking place. Now we understand that these are green shoots, right? Green shoots means some new leaves which has sprung out of a new plant. That means that maybe this money is invested in some fixed deposits, right? Maybe you have invested this money in your fixed deposits, and over a period of time you are getting some returns, right? And the time when you will be getting say 2%, 3% return, and you see your money is increasing over a period of time, you see the value of money, of your money is increasing, you find that these are those extra sets of money as returns you are getting, right? So this generally means that you have some existing stock of something, and from that you are getting some returns over a period of time, and this return is good for you, right? You are getting more and more returns. That is why it is something which we know as green shoots. Recently, Maruti India declared that India will be soon seeing its green shoots, right? Because the Indian economy is poised in such a condition in the global arena right now that we have the highest GDP growth rates in the country, and that is also what is leading to recovery of various sectors after the pandemic, and the various causes of inflations and so on. So that is why the various private companies, the various government institutions also, they report that India is in a phase, a particular phase in the global economy which is having a bright spot. So this is what this idea of green shoot is, and for the very first time the green shoots, or the situation of economic recovery following a particular downturn of economic activities, various amounts of economic crisis, when the economy is trying to recover back, it is something which we know as green shoots. For the very first time it was said by Norman Lamont, and according to him, the green shoots of economic spring are appearing once again. This is actually when he talked about using the very term green shoots for the very first time. So why we are discussing this? Because in prelims UPSC can tell that green shoots has been seen in news is related to what? Is related to environmental conservation program or economic term or something like this. So then you have to identify that why it is relevant, what is this term all about. So these are actually the minor things which we often miss, but this can be major questions in UPSC, or major things you can also quote them in your ethics answers, in your essays to enhance the value, right? Recently the government of India has announced that the grain deficient states, they can procure the food grains directly from the Food Corporation of India without participating in the e-auction, which is actually a very important function of the open market sales scheme. To understand this, have this very simple example. See, India is a country which is having one of the most strongest ideals or principles related to food security. In India, we have the National Food Security Act, which is trying to provide subsidized food items, food grains to the vulnerable sections of the population. Now in the comment section, can you tell me how much percentage of India is covered under National Food Security Act with legal provisions? Now under the National Food Security Act, we are having the legal requirement, that is giving the people the right to food as a legal provision to the vulnerable sections of the population. And that is where the food security aspect becomes extremely important, because we understand that a country such huge as India, they have to feed a lot of mouths, and that is why we have to have a proper structure of how we should be procuring the food grains, where we'll be storing them, distributing them, selling them, and so on. So understand this. The main aspect of food security starts with farmers. Farmers, they do what? For example, the farmers are growing crops, right? And for example, the farmers are growing rice or wheat. Let us take the example of wheat here. Now, for example, this is the wheat produce of this particular farmer. What the farmer will be doing next? Obviously, the farmer will be selling to the markets, right? To the markets to get some money or livelihood or income for the farmers. Now the farmer also knows that the market sometimes cannot give good returns. Now what the farmer does, okay, farmer knows about the government, that the government announces some minimum support price MSP, right? So the farmer hears about this, the farmer takes all of her crops and she goes to the Food Corporation of India. Food Corporation of India is actually the place where all of the farmers go to with their crops, and the FCI will be procuring all the crops at MSP, right, at the minimum support price, because minimum support price is actually something which we know as price floor, right? This is actually the floor or the minimum level where the prices should not go down. If for example the wheat, MSP for wheat is declared as at rupees 100 per kilo, for example,
the prices cannot go down to 98, 90 and so on. This is actually giving an income security to the farmers to protect against the various, say, illegal or say unjust market forces. So the farmers, they supply the various wheat to the FCI go down. Now what will be the FCI doing with all the rice or wheat or the various other things procured under MSP? The government, has this idea of food security, giving say nutritious crops under National Food Security Program. So what happens? The FCI firstly tells that okay, India as a whole, they need to create a buffer stock. Now buffer stock is actually a feature or a facility which will be protecting us from various droughts in the country, from adverse events in the country, maybe economic crises or various agricultural failures, during which our agricultural productivity will be hurt. Then we can use some emergency stock which we know as buffer stock. After this, we also have to distribute the food grains under National Food Security Act, right? We have to distribute food grains under midday meal scheme. We have to also look at various state governments where they have their own state specific food security aspects, right? So these are actually providing the food to the people at highly subsidized rate or sometimes majorly at free rates, right? Also we know during the COVID pandemic, we had this Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. So where will all those rice and wheat and the various cereals and the various say items will be coming from? From the farmers to the Food Corporation of India. From here, the Food Corporation of India first will be taking out some buffer stock, then distributing food grains under various social security programs of the country, and then it will be also selling or say distributing the various food grains to the state governments separately as various other programs by the state government. And finally, whatever will be left or whatever will be left, right, the rest of them, they will be sold under open market sale scheme. Open market sale scheme. Now this is very important, right? Open market sale scheme is actually done via e-auction, right? For example, say Food Corporation of India had 100 kilos of rice, 40 kilos went to buffer stock, 50 kilos went to say this kind of National Food Security and various other programs, say 5 kilos went to the various state governments, and the rest of 5 kilos, what the government will be doing, the FCI will be selling off via e-auction. To whom? To the various private mandis maybe, to the private merchants maybe, and the various market forces, but generally they are the private people who will be say taking part in the auction. And for example, they tell that okay, the MSP is 100, the Food Corporation of India is telling to the private people MSP is 100, now you quote how much price you will be paying me. So one of the merchants, he told that okay, I will be buying that particular wheat from you at 101 rupees, right? And some other farmer has told that I will be buying the rice at 102 rupees. So the farmer who is quoting the highest price, they will be getting the benefit here, right? Here the main idea is not to make money, right? Here if you can see, there is an element of auction. Obviously there will be an auction. There will be a particular, say for example, the FCI can tell that okay, you can refer to MSP, right? In this particular example we have talked about, FCI can tell that okay, we can decide some other price also, right? From that the auction will be starting. But the overall idea is not to make any profits. Here the main idea is to control something which is a very serious issue even right now, which we know as food inflation in the country, right? We understand due to various issues, maybe wheat can fall short, due to which right now also we have wheat export restrictions in the country, right? We cannot export unlimited amount of wheat all around the world. So that is one decision that the government has taken due to various economic reasons, due to many agricultural issues, for which we have export restrictions, because the supply of wheat can be at stake. So this is exactly what this open market sale scheme is talking about, to control the prices, of various agricultural commodities. And this is through controlled auctions. Maybe for example, at various agricultural cycles, Rabi season, Kharif season, the open market sales scheme generally take place after the harvest of this particular seasons, right? After the harvest, after the FCI has done with this kind of responsibilities, then whatever is left, after the harvest cycle, the open market sale is generally operating. But what happens if this is an off season? This is not a cyclic season. It is not the harvesting season. During the harvest season, we see that the prices are kind of stable in the markets of agricultural commodities. But what happens? Maybe not during the harvesting time, during maybe the sowing time, during maybe other periods of time. Then maybe the prices of rice, wheat and so on, they will be higher because of short supply, because the harvest has not come yet. Then this open market sale will be telling that, okay, the FCI has many say grains or many things, many agricultural commodities in their storeroom, right? So FCI will tell, okay, there should not be any price rise for the people. So what I will be doing, I will be increasing the supply. I will be increasing the supply because price rise generally take place due to shortage of supply of agricultural commodities. So FCI told that, okay, don't worry, more supply I am doing, please control the prices. So that is when the, say, various commodities will be supplied to the e-auction, via e-auction to the private sector, and then this particular, say, private people, they will be negotiating a market price and they will be trying to control the price. So this is exactly the idea of open market sales scheme in the country, and a very innovative idea how to utilize the entire, say, food grain production in the country. And recently some say this kind of food grain deficient states, they were allowed to participate in this open market sales scheme without any auction, without any e-auction, because these particular states, they need those particular crops, those particular food grains for their food security ambitions. Based on this, a question again, the answer of please do let me in the comments below. Recently, the ILO has released its global employment trends for youth, and here in this report we'll be looking into various information and data that will be relevant for our mains examination and also for the trends related question in our prelims. So firstly, we'll be looking into the key statistics. Now, nothing to understand in great conceptual detail, we'll be just looking into the key statistics. Firstly, we find that 13% is the global youth unemployment rate in 2023, but this 13% is not very high because this is the lowest rate in 15 years and a decrease from the pre-pandemic times in all but 3 sub-regions, not in all regions all across the world, except than 3 regions we have kind of reduced say youth unemployment rate. 20% is the share of youth not in employment, education or training, which is also NEET, known as NEET. So 20% of the youth are not in employment, education as in 2023. 2 in 3 young NEETs are women, right? 2 in 3 young NEETs are actually women in a global parameter, that is women who are not in employment, who are not under education or any kind of training. So these kind of people are very vulnerable. These kind of people do not have any livelihood. And maybe also their futures are at risk due to low levels of need. 1 in 3 youth live in a country that is off track for SDG targets to reduce the share of, say, young NEETs. Acha. Next, inequalities of opportunity, as you can find here, right? High income countries, that is 4 in 5 young workers, adult workers, are in a regular paid job. In the low income countries, the same number is 1 in 5. Right, so this is the level of disparity where we have 4 out of 5 here, the marks, and here 1 out of 5 in the low income developing nations, right? Acha. Now, when we talk about, say, the global challenges, right? The lack of jobs, as we find 1 in 3, right? 1 in 3 youth in Arab states and North Africa are unemployed. Lack of decent jobs, 3 in 4 youth in sub-Saharan Africa lack secure work. Demographic pressure, as you can see, 76 million people, right, is the growth in youth labor force in Africa by 2050, while all other regions face a contraction of young workers. That means that going forward, by 2050, we'll be having countries such as India and the various African countries which will be quite young, right? So, decent amount of opportunity in the future, right? Then rising youth anxiety levels is very high because 2 out of 3 youth are very anxious about economic conditions and about losing their jobs. Also, when we talk about education mismatch, 2 in 3 young workers in developing economies, they hold qualifications that do not match with their jobs. So they are also underqualified. So these are the various statistics you can use in your mains answers, right? And also, as you can see from this particular figure here, this is actually from the UN World Population Prospect 2022. Okay, as you can see here, the median age group across the various countries, right? We can understand that India is actually quite young, and also as you can see, Africa is also very, very young, right? So apart from this, most of the countries which we find is kind of in the bracket of 30 to 40 years, right? Where India is actually between 20 to 30 years. So this is actually showing the amount of demographic opportunity, or say the opportunity that India has due to high amount of young population. Acha, some other highlights is that economic growth was resilient after the COVID-19 pandemic. These are the highlights from the reports. That means economic growth has been kind of increasing gradually, right, despite the pandemic. After the pandemic, the growth all over the world, they peaked up. Global unemployment rate for youth aged 15 to 24 reached 13% in 2023, that we have always seen. The number of unemployed youth worldwide stood at 64.9 million, which is actually lowest since the turn of the millennium, that is in 15 years. Next, the youth employment to population ratio reached its pre-pandemic level at 35%. Drop in the youth unemployment rate has been smaller among women, right? So this is also something which we have to understand when we talk about the data and statistics. The number of young people who are not in employment, education, as we have seen, is concerning, which is high at 20% around, right? Also, we have seen the same percentage of women. Achha. When we talk about the unemployment, say, report, according to, say, various reports in the country itself, we find this is a very important figure where we can understand that we have a workforce, right? We have a labor force of how much? Of around 621 million people, right? And also we understand who are working age, not in labor force. Then we have various unemployed individuals, the numbers of which are given here. Please do, if needed, you can pause the screen and take a note of the various data, extremely important data. Achha. Then we find that out of this entire, say, particular fraction, right, there are some people who are not in labor force, and there are some people who are of working age, 551 million people. Labor force is around at 78.5, workforce is around this, and unemployment is around 3.3%. This is as of 2022 levels and comparing the male population. With reference to compare the male with female here, if you see, most of the women are not in labor force as compared to men. As we can see, this gap is very high. That means it signifies that female labor force participation, it is extremely low, right? And also, if we can understand that the unemployment rate is actually much more in men than women at 2.9%, right? So these are the broader things that we needed to know here. Apart from this, some other highlights from the data, from the report, the unemployment rate more than doubled from 5.7% to 17.5% in 2019, but decreased to 12.4% in 2022 according to ILO report. There is higher unemployment rate between women and graduates. The World Bank, according to the World Bank, 23.5% of Indian youth were classified as NEET 2023, and the economic survey also tells that India needs to create 7.85 million non-farm jobs annually until 2030 to accommodate the growing workforce in the country. So these are all the important things that you needed to know according to this report. And according to this report, please do let me know the answer of this particular question in the comments below. Now in this article, we will be looking into the Andhra Pradesh community managed natural farming who won the 2024 Gulbenkiya Prize for Humanity for its efforts into natural farming. As you can see, all of these crops that these people are holding, these are the produce of natural agriculture, where we understand the government of Andhra Pradesh under a particular initiative which is known as Raitu Sandhikaran Samastha. This is trying to promote more and more aspects of natural farming in the state governments. Not only in Andhra Pradesh, we also have various other states in the country who are trying to improve or say trying to have more and more investments, more and more efforts to promote the natural farming in the country. Now when we talk about natural farming is a very sustainable way of farming using no chemicals, using say forestry, using say livestock, cropping, and various other aspects of conservation, aspects of using vermicomposts, using various aspects of natural ways of doing cultivation of crops on a very sustainable scale. So this is how the natural farming of say 2024 is carried on using extremely sustainable approaches for farming, which has been being practiced in India not only for a few years but for thousands of years, right? Where our own Indian farmers, they try to utilize the most natural process of growing crops, where we understand that after Green Revolution there has been increased use of chemicals, fertilizers and so on. And this is leading to huge amount of loss of agricultural productivity and so on. So this is exactly the reason why we are trying to return back to natural processes. And this is exactly was actually in India was popularized by Maharashtrian Subhash Palekar, who in recent times is trying to popularize the idea of natural farming in India by various processes, actually by using mulching, Jeevamruta, Vapasa and Bijamrita, right? Bijamrit, Vapasa, Jeevamrit and mulching, these are four main pillars of natural farming, where mulching is actually covering the crops to stimulate a micro environment for the soil ecology. Then Jeevamruta is actually trying to promote more and more aspects of say microorganisms in the soil itself, so that the microorganisms such as worms and so on, they can create more and more air spaces and proper amount of oxygen that must be available for the soil. Then also we have Vapasa and Bijamrita, which is trying to have proper aspects of seed fertilization, coating the seeds in cow dung and urine, and have proper fertilization before even cultivating the crops. So that is what is leading to various benefits of say natural farming. It is trying to protect the biodiversity, bringing resilience. It is trying to have higher crop yields and productivity. And because we are using natural ingredients and no chemical additives, it will be also rejuvenating the soil, and over a period of time it will be trying to increase the yields. And this is exactly the main thing that this particular Andhra Pradesh government initiative is trying to do. That many farmers are skeptical that in the short term, the agriculture productivity, the crop productivity, they will be decreasing. But if we use natural substances, over a period of time, the soil will replenish and it will be giving you even better returns in the near future. So this is exactly what the idea is. And this will be helping local communities over a period of time. It does not pollute the soil or chemical, or the chemical composition of the soil, right? It protects the soil against any erosion. It ensures healthy, sustainable food, and it also reduces the greenhouse gas emissions due to non-usage of, nitrogen, phosphorus, and this kind of fertilizers, which leads to higher emission of various greenhouse gases. And this is exactly what this Andhra Pradesh community managed natural farming is trying to do. Please do use such examples in your mains answers. Also in GS2 papers, in GS1 papers, you can mention this, right? The main purpose is to have alternative farming solutions, right? And this is generally by distributing innovation to many households, many farmers in the particular area of natural farming. So this was the main initiative here, and based on this, please let me know the answer in the comments below of this particular question. Now, according to government reports, there is a growth in mineral production. As we can also see here that India has reported 9% growth in iron ore, and India's iron ore production has been increasing over a period of time according to Ministry of Mines data, right? Also on the other side, we can see the manganese production has also increased over a period of time, but the limestone production has increased only by a little bit of 0.7%, but iron manganese and limestone, they have increased over a period of time. So that is why the government is trying to focus on increasing the production and having better amount of mineral requirement of the nation. India is also second largest, say, aluminium producer, third largest lime producer, and fourth largest iron producer in the world. Very important facts for your prelims examination. Recently, the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, which is actually the one of the part of the World Bank family, it is trying to increase its investments in India. And India, over a period of time, tries to have the ambition of transforming to the green energy aspect, and this is where MIGA is playing a very important role. Apart from this, MIGA is also trying to invest in India in the dedicated freight corridor project of the country. Can you let me know in the comment what dedicated freight corridor is all about? And also, it is not only about this, it is also trying to have around, say, $500 million of solar financing projects in the country. So MIGA is doing a lot of things, but here we have to talk about MIGA and the various roles and responsibilities. Firstly, we see that under the World Bank Group, we have the IBRD, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, which is actually the main World Bank we know about. Then we have International Development Association, International Finance Corporation, MIGA, that is Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency. By the name we can understand, it is trying to invest in various developing nations for very sustainable projects, and it can lead to resilience among the developing nations. Then finally we have the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes. Now we understand that the World Bank comprises of 5 institutions, as we have seen, and all of these institutions together, they are known as the World Bank Group. Individually, if you see the IBRD, right, it leads to financing of middle income developing countries, right? And we have the International Development Association, which is responsible for financing of low income developing country. So together, 1 and 2, IBRD and IDA, they are known as World Bank. So it is very important for our prelims information. Together, these 1 and 2, these are known as World Bank, and the entire 5 family, right, they are known as World Bank Group. Then we have the IFC, which looks into investments and advisory services to encourage private sector development, and the MIGA, right, which is with respect to the various investment agencies. They work with the private sector in the country to have more and more better approach, right? And finally, we have an international dispute resolution mechanism. When we talk about MIGA, right, this is headquartered at Washington DC, right? This is headquartered at Washington DC, and is trying to have more and more investments in the countries, in the member states, where it is trying to focus on various financing agents, various investment projects, and this kind of likely activities for the developing nations. So hence a very, very important agency. And based on this, you please let me know the answer of the same in the comment section below. Finally, we have come to the last article, where recently the SWIFT messaging banking platform, it has launched its AI pilot program to tackle financial fraud. Firstly, let us look at what SWIFT is all about and how SWIFT operates. Now, imagine you live in the US, Washington, right, and your cousin lives in Germany, right? What you want to do, you want to simply send money to your cousin, right? So what you do, you send, for example, say $100 to your cousin. But do you think that this is so simple? Firstly, you need to have, for example, if you're in Washington, you need to have your bank in some area of Washington DC, right? So maybe this is the, for example, Bank A, and this Bank A is actually registered in the US with the, say, it is under the supervision of the central bank of the US, that is the US Fed, and using various transactions or say this kind of things, right, you try to send some money to your cousin under a very complex banking system. Why complex? Because this $100, which may seem very simple by you sending from this point to this point, but the background process is actually very complex. How? Because when you send the money, the Bank A in US, your bank, and the Bank B, your cousin bank, they would need a communication mechanism, right? They would need a communication mechanism. They would also need a particular, say, aspect which are known as Nostro and Vostro account, right? Nostro and Vostro accounts are actually the international branches of various banks. For example, this bank can have a branch of the same bank in the US for settling of any transaction between these two banks. For example, this bank is, or you are sending from this bank to this bank money. So for example, Dutch bank in Germany, they can or say bank B in Germany, they can actually have a, you know, say office of its own account in Washington DC, right? And here this bank is actually the subsidiary of this bank, and it is trying to transact using this money. Now this SWIFT code is actually being managed by this particular SWIFT messaging platform, which is in operation since 1979 in the world, which is an international system specially used to transmit these interbank, say, transactions between the various banks of the world. And this is exactly what we understand by a secure messaging platform between various banks. And these banks, these particular platforms are very important to enhance the trust and transparency of the international financial sector. And recently, as you can see, that internationally, the global frauds related to financial aspects are increasing over a period of time. That is why SWIFT has released a kind of a, say, statement that fraudsters are getting smarter, so are we. So we are using AI, that means SWIFT is using AI to fight the fraudsters, which, as you can see, are increasing over a period of time all across the world. This can be with reference to business, email scams, human trafficking, internet frauds, drug trafficking, terrorist financing, money laundering, and so on. So these are all the things which are increasing over a period of time. As we can see here, terrorist financing, mule activities, these are all increasing. And this is exactly why SWIFT is developing a technology to fight these crimes with artificial intelligence. So with this, we are at the end of the discussion today. I hope we gained a lot of knowledge, we get a lot of interactions. So with this, I wish you all the best and the best of luck. And please do try to have the value additions from the things we have learned today. Till again, all the best and best of luck for your future. Thank you.